Billionaire wife was in coma for 20 years, until the new maid son did the impossible. For 20 long years she lay silent, untouched by time but never forgotten. The city had moved forward, yet her rhythm lived on like an echo no one could erase. The 3-3-2 beat, 3 strikes, 2 strikes, was no longer just a rhythm. It had become a tradition, a language of its own, passed from playgrounds to living rooms, from teachers to restless students, from parents to sleepy toddlers. They called it Lydia's rhythm. Her name was Lydia Cole. 2 decades earlier, Lydia had been a figure everyone in the city knew, not because of her wealth, though her marriage to billionaire Adrian Cole had made headlines across glossy magazines, but because of her gift. She had invented a rhythm so simple yet so mesmerizing that it captured the hearts of children everywhere. With a drum slung across her shoulder, she toured classrooms, auditoriums and playgrounds, teaching children how to clap, tap or drum out the 3-3-2 pattern. It was more than music, it was medicine. Teachers swore it kept distracted children focused, parents said it soothed anxious little ones to sleep, and communities embraced it as a uniting sound. But Lydia herself never sought fame. Her joy came from the smiles of children, from watching tiny hands create something magical with nothing more than rhythm. Then came the crash. A rainy night, headlights cutting through the downpour, tires screeching, sirens filling the darkness. By dawn, the headlines screamed across every newspaper. Lydia Cole, drum queen of children, fights for her life. She never opened her eyes again. The city mourned, yet the rhythm spread even more fiercely, like a memorial in sound. Children clapped it on desks, parents tapped it on kitchen tables, and toddlers patted it into their pillows before sleep. Lydia's beat became an heirloom, a piece of the city's soul. But Lydia herself remained in silence. Now, 20 years later, she lay in a private hospital wing, a space her husband had built to house her fragile body and unyielding hope. Her once golden hair had silvered at the edges. Her lashes rested against pale cheeks, her chest rising only because of the thin line beneath her nose feeding oxygen. Machines hummed and blinked like merciless guardians, recording her stillness day and night. Adrian Cole had stopped inviting visitors years ago. Hope was expensive, and he had already paid in ways few could imagine. He funded the best doctors, the most advanced machines, the rarest therapies. Yet nothing changed. Eventually, he closed the doors to her room and carried his grief in silence, retreating from the world. But not everyone had forgotten Lydia's rhythm. 5-year-old Micah hadn't lived in the days when Lydia was awake, yet he carried her song in his small hands. He was the son of Zuri, a maid working tirelessly in the same hospital wing where Lydia slept, and everywhere Micah went, he carried a little blue toy drum, its red strap crossing his chest, its wooden sticks always ready. Whenever he was nervous, he tapped. Whenever he was scared, he tapped, and always he tapped the 3-3-2 his mother had taught him. Every child should know this rhythm, Zuri would tell him while folding sheets or scrubbing sinks. It was created by a woman who made the whole city sing before she went silent. Micah believed her. He believed rhythms could talk. And soon, he would test that belief in the most impossible way. That afternoon, the hospital hallways smelled faintly of disinfectant, the kind that clung to your clothes even after you left. Zuri was busy scrubbing down a sink, her brow glistening under the harsh fluorescent lights. She glanced at Micah, who sat swinging his legs on a chair nearby, tapping his toy drum against his knees. "Micah," she warned softly, "stay in the lounge. Don't wander. You hear me?" "I won't," he replied quickly, though he already knew he was lying. The pull was too strong. For weeks he had listened to his mother's stories about Lydia, the woman who had made children laugh and sing with nothing but a rhythm. Micah didn't just hear the stories, he believed them. Deep in his small heart, he was convinced the rhythm wasn't just a game. It was a voice, and voices were meant to be heard. So, while his mother worked, he slipped down the hallway, drum bouncing lightly against his side with each step. His sneakers squeaked on the polished floor as he followed the corridor toward the door no child was ever supposed to open. Micah hesitated only once, before pushing it open. Inside, the room was quiet, except for the slow, steady beeping of a monitor. The air felt heavy, filled with something sacred. And there she was, the woman from the stories, lying still and pale against crisp white sheets. Tubes and wires surrounded her, machines watching her like unblinking eyes. Micah clutched his drum tighter and whispered, "Miss Lydia." No answer, only the rhythm of the machines. He climbed carefully onto the step near her bed, balancing the little drum in his lap. His small fingers trembled, but his heart was steady. He leaned close, watching her still face. From the doorway, a voice broke the silence. "Hey, you can't be in here." A doctor, clipboard tucked under his arm, had frozen in shock at the sight of the boy. His expression hardened as he stormed forward. "Get away from her bed. She's in a coma, boy. Don't bang toys in here." Micah ignored him. His small hands lifted the drumsticks, and with all the patience in the world, he began to play. 3 beats, 3 beats, 2 beats, soft, steady, unshaken. The doctor's face turned red. "Stop that racket right now." But Micah leaned even closer to Lydia's face. His voice was barely above a whisper. "If you can hear me, Miss Lydia, can blink on the last 2. The doctor froze. His anger faltered, replaced by a flicker of disbelief. "What did you just say?" Micah didn't look at him. He tapped again, repeating the rhythm. 3, 3, 2. "Blink," Micah urged gently. "If you know this, blink." For the first time in 20 years, Lydia's lashes trembled. The doctor's clipboard slipped from his hand, clattering loudly onto the floor. His breath caught, and he shook his head as though trying to wake himself from a dream. "No," he muttered quickly. "That's just a reflex. It has to be coincidence." But Micah didn't stop. He tapped the drum again, lips moving with the count. 3, 3, 2, Miss Lydia, show me again." Her eyelids lifted, once, twice, perfectly in time. The doctor stumbled backward, his heart pounding in his ears. His lips parted with a whisper he hadn't dared utter in decades. "Oh my God." The door burst open again. Zuri rushed inside, towel still clutched in her hand, her eyes blazing. "Micah, I told you to—" Her words stopped as she took in the scene. The doctor stood pale and trembling. Her son knelt by the bed, toy drum pressed against his chest, and Lydia Cole, the woman who had been silent for 20 years, had just blinked. "What's happening?" Zuri whispered, her voice breaking. The doctor's lips moved, but the words seemed to stumble out of him. He's getting a response. This isn't possible." Zuri's grip tightened on Micah's shoulder. "What did you do?" Micah's small eyes didn't waver. He pointed at the woman in the bed. "You told me she taught everyone the rhythm, so I played it. She heard me." Before Zuri could reply, heavy footsteps thundered in the hallway. Then a deep voice cut through the room like a blade. "What's all this noise?" Adrian Cole, billionaire, husband, widower in every way but the law. He stood tall in his tailored suit, his expression sharp with fury. His eyes darted to the doctor, then to Zuri, and finally landed on the small boy at Lydia's bedside. "Who let a child in here?" he snapped. "Sir, please," the doctor began, but Adrian cut him off with a raised hand. "Remove him, now!" Micah startled, but his voice rose clear and firm, carrying more courage than his size should allow. "No!" The room froze. Even Adrian faltered, taken aback by the boy's defiance. "She's listening," Micah insisted. Adrian's jaw clenched, the muscles in his face tightening. He stepped forward, ready to pull the boy away himself. But before his hand could reach him, Lydia's fingers twitched, a small, fragile movement, perfectly in rhythm with the boy's drum. Adrian stopped dead in his tracks, his breath caught, his gaze snapping to his wife's pale face. 20 years of despair, 20 years of silence, 20 years of watching machines breathe for her, and now the smallest movement of her hand, timed to the rhythm he had buried long ago. Micah's voice rang out again. "You don't believe? Watch." He lifted his sticks and tapped with careful precision. 3, 3, 2. And on the last 2 beats, Lydia blinked. Purposeful, direct, undeniable. The room went utterly still, save for the faint, steady beep of the monitor. Adrian staggered backward, his knees buckling until they hit the side of the bed. His lips trembled, his voice breaking into pieces. Lydia. Her name fell from him like a prayer he hadn't dared speak in 2 decades. Zuri gasped, tears spilling freely down her cheeks. The doctor pressed both hands to his head, shaking with disbelief. But Micah only leaned closer, his drumstick still in hand, his eyes never leaving Lydia's face. "She knows the song," he said softly. "Don't stop me now." Adrian's voice cracked again, raw and desperate. Dear God. And for the first time in 20 years, it seemed God had answered. The doctor found his voice first, though it shook like a leaf in the wind. "Mr. Cole, I need to run a neurological check right now. We have to confirm if this response is consistent." Adrian's eyes never left Lydia's face. His hands gripped the bedrail so tightly, his knuckles whitened. "Do it. Do anything." Zuri tried to pull Micah back, but Adrian raised a trembling hand. His tone was firm, though his body quaked with disbelief. "Let him stay. If my wife blinked because of him, I want to see it again." Micah stood straighter, his little drum strapped across his chest like armor. The doctor leaned close to Lydia. "Mrs. Cole, if you can hear me, blink twice." For a long moment, nothing. The monitor hummed, the machines kept their steady rhythm, and despair returned like a shadow across Adrian's face. "It was just a reflex," he whispered bitterly. "A cruel coincidence." "No," Micah interrupted, his voice sharp with conviction. He raised his sticks again. 3, 3, 2. "Miss Lydia," he urged, "it's your song. Blink on the last 2. 1 blink, 2 blinks. Gasps filled the room. The doctor nearly dropped his stethoscope, his hands fumbling as though he could catch proof in metal and wires. This is a purposeful response," he stammered. "It's not chance. She's minimally conscious. After 20 years. He turned, eyes blazing with awe. "Do you understand what this means?" Adrian's legs gave way, and he collapsed into the chair beside the bed, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook, his voice muffled by grief and wonder colliding. "It means she's still here. I thought I'd lost her. But she's still here." Micah hugged his drum tight, his little chest heaving from the effort. "She listened because I played her song. My mom taught me 3-3-2. She said it was Lydia's rhythm. Everyone knows it." Zuri's lips trembled. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, "It's true. After the accident, the rhythm became a tradition. Every child learned it. I never thought it would reach her again. I never thought." Her voice broke into silence. Adrian looked up at her, his eyes raw with disbelief. His voice carried both accusation and gratitude. "Your son just gave me back what billions of doctors and machines never could." The doctor shook his head, still dazed. "We'll need therapy, neurology, physiotherapy, speech rehabilitation. But this is historic. If the city learns Lydia responded to her own rhythm, it could change how we approach every coma patient." Adrian rose, his expensive suit rumpled and forgotten. He knelt before Micah, lowering himself until they were eye level. His hands gripped the boy's small shoulders. His voice trembled, but his words carried weight. "Micah, you gave me back my hope. You woke her when no one else could. You ended my darkest nights." Micah blinked shyly, suddenly aware of all the eyes on him. "I just wanted her to hear." Adrian pulled the boy into his arms, hugging him tightly, ignoring the awkward drum pressed between them. His voice cracked against Micah's ear. "You did more than that. You gave me back my wife." News travels faster than truth, and within days the story of Lydia Cole's awakening spread like wildfire. It began quietly. Hospital whispers, a nurse who couldn't contain her excitement, a staff member texting a cousin. By the week's end, the headline exploded across every major outlet. "Coma patient responds after 20 years to her own viral rhythm." Parents wept in kitchens as they read it. Teachers stopped mid-lesson to show their students. On playgrounds, children tapped the 332 louder than ever before, filling the air with echoes of hope. Lydia's rhythm was no longer just a tradition, it was living proof of something miraculous. Adrian, who had shut himself away for decades, now stood before cameras, his arm protectively around Micah, while Zuri hovered nearby. His voice was steady, but his eyes glistened with unspoken tears. My wife gave this city a gift, long before she lost her voice. Today, a child gave her voice back. Flashes burst. Questions were shouted, but Adrian bent down and whispered words only Micah could hear. "You're her drummer now." The words wrapped around the boy's heart like a sacred oath. Inside the hospital, Lydia's therapy began. Specialists worked cautiously, documenting every twitch, every flicker of movement. And always, Micah was invited. Day after day, he carried his little blue drum to her bedside, playing softly, patiently, never rushing. 3, 3, 2. Her eyes would track the sound, her fingers would twitch in time, and once, faint but clear, her lips parted, shaping a single, fragile word. Beat. The room fell into stunned silence. Adrian collapsed against the bed, clutching her hand as tears poured down his cheeks. "I hear you, Lydia. I hear you." The doctor recorded everything, cataloguing each moment with feverish care. But outside the walls of medical charts, it was the simplest image that captured the city's heart. A boy with a toy drum, playing a rhythm the whole world knew, while a woman who had slept for 20 years blinked and moved in time. Zuri watched with awe, her heart torn between disbelief and pride. She had scrubbed floors, folded sheets, and carried endless burdens just to survive. Yet her child, her son, had done what the richest men and the brightest doctors could not. Adrian, hardened by loss for so long, stood transformed. He no longer looked like the untouchable billionaire who had closed himself off from the world. Now he was simply a husband, a man with tears on his face, whispering promises into his wife's ear. "You will finish your song, Lydia," he murmured, kissing her hand, "and I'll be here for every note." Outside, playgrounds overflowed with children drumming the 332 rhythm with renewed passion. But this time, it wasn't just Lydia's legacy. It was her return. The rhythm that had once been a memory was now a bridge, connecting past to present, despair to hope, silence to song. And at the center of it all was a boy with a drum who believed rhythms could talk. Weeks turned into months, and Lydia's progress became a beacon for the entire city. What began as a blink had grown into gestures, faint words, and moments of clarity that no doctor dared dismiss. Each day, Micah sat faithfully by her bed, tapping the familiar rhythm with a patience that seemed far older than his 5 years. Adrian never left her side. He had once been a man consumed by wealth and hollow routines, but now his fortune found new purpose. He poured every resource into music-based therapy, hiring specialists from across the world. If rhythm could wake Lydia, he declared to a room of scientists, then rhythm can reach others. We'll find out how. The city responded in kind. Schools introduced daily rhythm sessions. Parents taught the 332 to toddlers before bedtime. Musicians recorded songs built around it, and suddenly Lydia's beat wasn't just a pattern, it was a movement. But within the hospital walls, away from headlines and cameras, it was still deeply personal. One late evening, as the city lights glowed outside the window, Micah sat cross-legged on the chair, his drum resting on his lap. He tapped the rhythm softly, the sound almost a lullaby. 3, 3, 2. Lydia's lips parted, the faintest smile tugged at her mouth. "Again," she whispered, barely audible. Micah's eyes widened. "You heard me." Her fingers twitched, reaching weakly toward his hand. Adrian, overcome, bowed his head against the bed, shoulders shaking as silent tears fell. "You're coming back to me," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "After all this time, you're finding your way home." Zuri stood quietly in the corner, her hands clasped together. She thought of the years she had carried buckets, scrubbed sinks, folded linens in silence, all while raising her son to believe that even small voices mattered. And now that belief had changed the impossible. The doctors continued their work, noting every milestone. But there were things no chart could measure. The way Lydia's eyes softened when Adrian read her old letters aloud, the way her lips tried to form words when Micah drummed, the way her spirit seemed tethered to the rhythm that had always belonged to her. And slowly, though not yet fully, Lydia began to return. One morning, as sunlight streamed across her bed, she whispered her first full sentence in 20 years. "Don't stop the beat." Adrian wept openly, clutching her hand as though it might vanish if he let go. "I won't," he vowed. "Not ever." News of that sentence rippled outward like a wave, but the truth was simpler than the headlines. It wasn't science alone that had brought her back. It was love. It was faith. And above all, it was a rhythm carried by a child who refused to stop playing. The city kept asking, "Do you believe music can reach where medicine fails?" For Adrian, for Zuri, for Micah, and most of all for Lydia, the answer was already written in every beat. 3, 3, 2, the rhythm of return, the rhythm of life. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching. Curious.